So in this video, what I want to talk about is, should you buy designer or niche fragrances? So by first off, starting off is, let's define what each thing means. So when you hear the word designer fragrance, a designer fragrance is any fragrance that is associated with the brand that is not just known for making fragrances. So if it's the brand that is known for making clothing, makeup, watches, shoes, whatever the case may be, that is seen as a designer fragrance. For example, we have here Prada Luna Rossa Ocean. Prada is a brand that is known for making different type of bags, different type of clothing, and so then they also have, as part of their label, they make fragrances as well, right? So that's what a designer fragrance is. Now, a niche fragrance is a fragrance company that is designed for making fragrances. Their sole purpose is to make fragrances. So example of a niche brand would be something like this. This is Parfums de Marly, and then that's their fragrance called Pegasus, right? So which of the two brands or subsections should you go with? Well, it all depends on, like I say, your fragrance personality. Now, with designer fragrances, they're gonna usually run a little bit less expensive, right? Especially if you can find it on a discounter, and even if you buy them retail, right? Those are the type of fragrances you're gonna be able to find at your Macy's, your Sephora, your Dillard's, your Ulta's, right? Because they're mass pleasing and they're easier to get access to. Niche fragrances are gonna be the type of fragrances that you'll find at a Galleria, at a duty free, or at different, mom and pop type shops. Right now, niche fragrances are going to run more expensive usually because their sole purpose is making fragrance. Also, because it's the namesake of a brand, their niche fragrances are usually going to have better reviews, better ratings. They're going to have different scents. They're going to have more note breakdowns. They're going to have different types of notes. And so especially nowadays, a lot of designer fragrances tend to run the same type of thing. So it gets to be sort of repetitive if you're a collector like myself. Versus niche fragrances have to, put their mark as far as being innovative and being diverse, because if not, then they don't make the money, right? But for me, how I would always advise it is that I would start off, if you're someone who wants to get into fragrances, start off with designer scents, and you can use the designer scents you acquire to sort of say, okay, I like fragrances that smell like this or like that. I like fresh fragrances or more aromatic fragrances. Then once you start to build your personality up, once you start to understand what you like, then you can start looking into getting niche perfumes, right? This Luna Rossa Ocean I got, but this is like, years into me collecting, and so then I was able to say, okay, this is a subsector of a fragrance, right? This is what they call a flanker of a fragrance that I knew I liked, I knew I was a fan of. And then versus this Parfums de Marly, I didn't start collecting Parfums de Marly until I had been about 1 or 2 years into collecting fragrances. Once I kind of got my nose around all types of scents, I had collected quite a few, and then it was about trying to get different types of niche fragrances under my belt. So that's how I'd go about it. Start off with designers, start building that up, build your nose up. Then once you start getting a feel for things, especially if you're a person who likes the richness of a fragrance and you know that you want things that are a little bit more higher end, then you can start venturing into niche fragrances. For me now, in my collecting journey, I don't really buy too many designers unless it's one that is so good and so well reviewed, then I'll add that. But for the most part, I'm sort of at that phase of kind of acquiring some niche fragrances and getting that portfolio start to build up. That way I know how to recommend and how to review both sides. Okay? Get back to you on the next one.